The world today vibrates with a deafening noise, a constant, insistent demand for your attention, a relentless chorus that shouts, "Be seen, be heard, be connected." We've been conditioned to fear the silence, to interpret solitude not as a sanctuary but as a sentence, a proof of failure, a sign of being overlooked. But I am here to tell you, in the most earnest and absolute terms, that this widespread aversion to being alone is, in fact, a foundational block to the very success and good fortune you tirelessly pursue. The greatest architects of history, the thinkers, the innovators, the leaders, did not find their blueprints in a crowded marketplace. They discovered them in the disciplined quiet of their own minds. Think for a moment about the subtle tyranny of the constant crowd, whether physical or digital. Every interaction, every notification, every voice demanding validation is an expenditure of your most finite resource, focused mental energy. You are giving away pieces of yourself, small, essential fragments of consciousness, to maintain the social contracts of the moment. You become a reflection of your surroundings, perpetually reacting instead of initiating. The modern man believes he is gaining knowledge and connection, but what he is truly accumulating is distraction and spiritual debt. I want you to consider the lives of two individuals. The first is perpetually surrounded. His weekends are booked solid. His phone screen glows with the light of non-stop conversations. He is popular, yes, and he is busy, always busy. Yet, observe his results. They are often scattered, his ambition a wide, shallow pool. He lacks the penetrating clarity required for monumental achievement because he never gives his thoughts the space to mature. He is always on the surface, moving with the current of external influence. The second individual embraces the deliberate choice to retreat. They carve out time, perhaps an hour each morning, perhaps a full weekend every quarter, where the door is closed, the devices are silenced, and the only conversation is the deep, honest dialogue with the self. This person is not antisocial. They are selectively social. They understand that the highest form of contribution to the world stems from a well-forged yet uncontaminated core. Their results when they emerge are not merely busy work. They are significant. They possess the rare quality of intentionality. This is not a call to become a hermit. It is a declaration of the necessity of strategic solitude. It is the principle that dictates you must first fill your own vessel before you can pour into the lives of others. And the only true nourishment for that vessel is the uninterrupted processing of experience, the unfiltered distillation of knowledge, and the unflinching confrontation with one's own character. Good fortune, the kind that endures, the kind that transforms a life and leaves a legacy, is not a random lottery ticket. It is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. And how do you prepare for the grand opportunities that await? You prepare by fostering a mind capable of recognizing them, analyzing them, and acting upon them with surgical precision. This requires a level of mental silence that the bustling world simply cannot provide. The great deception of our age is that we are constantly told we need more information, more contacts, more visibility. But the path to true power lies in subtraction. Subtract the noise. Subtract the opinions that are not your own. Subtract the low-value activities that merely serve to occupy time. In the vacuum of this subtraction, something extraordinary begins to grow. Self-possession. Solitude is the laboratory where character is forged. When you are alone, you cannot lean on the approval of others. You cannot hide behind the collective energy of a group. You are forced to see your habits, your weaknesses, your true motivations, without the softening filter of external validation. This is uncomfortable. It is challenging. But discomfort is the universal precursor to growth. It is the grinding friction that sharpens the blade of your will. The courage to face yourself in the quiet is the first discipline of the successful life. I know the counter-argument that immediately springs to mind, but Franklin, networking is crucial. Collaboration is key. And I wholeheartedly agree. But ask yourself, what quality of self are you bringing to the network? Are you bringing a clearly defined purpose, a crystallized idea, a powerful, unique point of view? Or are you bringing an echo of the last person you spoke to, a half-formed concept that desperately needs external validation to survive? The most powerful collaborators are those who arrive at the table full, not those who arrive empty, expecting others to fill them. Solitude ensures you arrive full. It is in the depths of your chosen isolation that the mechanism of intuition is recalibrated. Intuition is not some mystical force. It is your subconscious mind working at a furious, complex pace, drawing upon every piece of data you've ever processed, connecting disparate observations into a coherent, actionable insight. But this process is fragile. It is instantly suppressed by the chatter of the ego, by the fear of being wrong, or by the overwhelming input of 1,000 external voices. When you unplug, when you embrace the silence, you give your subconscious the necessary bandwidth to deliver its profound conclusions. This, my friends, is where the breakthrough ideas are born. Embrace the concept of the thinking chair, a metaphor for a place, a time, a sacred space dedicated solely to non-actionable thought. It is where you simply be, without the pressure to do. It is a revolutionary act in a world obsessed with productivity metrics. It is where you permit yourself the luxury of deep, meandering reflection. It is here that you find the answers that have eluded you in the frantic pace of the workday. Good fortune follows the person whose mind is an ordered, quiet instrument, not a chaotic, echoing bazaar. This is the true secret of high-level performance. Not just working hard, but thinking well. It is here, in this deliberate isolation, that the most critical transformation takes place, the shift from external validation to internal conviction. When you remove yourself from the constant feedback loop of peers, subordinates, or even loved ones, you are forced to answer the question, what do I truly believe? Not what is fashionable, not what is popular, but what truth resides so deeply within your bones that you are willing to stake your reputation, your time, and your fortune on it. This conviction is the engine of lasting good fortune because it gives your actions unshakable coherence. Think of the most impactful people you know, those who genuinely move the needle in their field. Their power does not come from their network size, it comes from their uniqueness of thought. They cultivated that uniqueness by spending countless hours in the quiet, wrestling with complex problems, challenging conventional wisdom, and daring to formulate a point of view that was initially entirely their own. The world rewards originality, and originality is a flower that only blooms in the soil of solitude. Let me share a brief anecdote, not of a historical titan, but of a man I once mentored. Let us call him Marcus. Marcus was intelligent, ambitious, and utterly burnt out. He was trying to build a business empire, but he was drowning in meetings, calls, and commitments. He measured his worth by the fullness of his calendar. His revenue was stuck on a plateau, and his health was failing. I gave him a non-negotiable directive, the Sunday sanctuary. I told him to dedicate one full day a week Sunday to absolute uninterrupted solitude. No phone, no email, no meetings, no news, no social media, just himself, a notebook, and silence. Initially, he fought it. He felt guilty. He felt lazy. The ingrained fear of missing out, of being unproductive, was a powerful, nagging voice. But Marcus was disciplined. He committed. And within 3 months, the change was profound. What happened? In that Sunday quiet, the real problems of his business, which were buried under the daily rush of symptomatic issues, finally surfaced. He realized he wasn't the CEO of a company. He was merely the busiest employee. He found the courage to fire a difficult but initially important client that was consuming 40% of his time for 10% of his profit. He realized his core value proposition was muddled, and he used the stillness to write a single, powerfully clear sentence defining his mission. The results followed almost instantly. By subtracting the noise, he didn't lose time, he gained leverage. His clarity allowed him to make strategic decisions that had been impossible when he was merely reacting. His revenue doubled within the next year, not because he worked harder, but because he thought better. His fortune changed because he embraced the discipline of being alone. This brings us to the next profound benefit of strategic solitude, the ability to execute the great review. Most people live their lives looking forward to the next goal, the next meeting, the next reward, but they rarely look inward and backward with objective honesty. The Great Review is a scheduled, intense period where you audit your life's ledger. In the quiet, you can ask the terrifying and necessary questions. Where did I compromise my values? Which decision was rooted in fear instead of principle? Am I still climbing the right ladder? This review is the vital process of course correction. If you never take the time to step off the racetrack, you run the risk of accelerating in the wrong direction. The world is full of busy, diligent people who are successful by every external metric, yet feel hollow. They achieved a goal that was planted by their parents or their peers or society, but never by their own soul. Solitude is the ultimate test of authenticity. It is the only place where the whisper of your true purpose can finally overcome the clamor of external expectations. You must understand that the quality of your fortune is directly proportional to the quality of your self-knowledge. To know oneself is the highest form of strategic intelligence. It allows you to leverage your strengths without reservation and manage your weaknesses before they become catastrophic vulnerabilities. The man who knows himself has already solved half the problems of his life. The final, transformative principle I want you to grasp now is that solitude builds resilience. A life committed to significant achievement will inevitably face setbacks, betrayal, failure, public criticism. The man who is comfortable only when surrounded by supporters is utterly destroyed the moment the crowd turns against him. His center of gravity is external. But the man who has spent time in the furnace of his own solitude, who has faced his fears and emerged intact, has built an internal citadel. When the storm hits, when the critics gather, he has a place to retreat, not physically, but mentally. He knows, deep down, that he can stand alone. His worth is not determined by the last headline or the current market fluctuation. It is self-assigned. This internal resilience is the insurance policy of great success. It ensures that when you fall, and you will fall, you do not shatter. You simply recalibrate, rise, and continue the march. The confidence that radiates from a man who is not dependent on others for his peace is magnetic. It is, ironically, the greatest attractor of good fortune that exists. The world is constantly trying to define you, to put a label on you, to reduce your complex aspirations into a convenient category. But your greatness resides outside those boundaries. It is in solitude that you rediscover the power of the unlabeled self, the self that existed before the external world imposed its definitions. You are not merely a job title, a parent, a spouse, or a consumer. You are an untapped reservoir of potential. And the only way to access that depth is to silence the noise long enough to hear the water moving within. I want you to begin right now to practice what I call the intentional interval. This is not a vacation, it is a discipline. It means scheduling short, deliberate periods, perhaps 15 minutes in the middle of a frantic workday, where you deliberately step away from the point of friction. Do not fill this time with mindless scrolling or casual conversation. Instead, sit with your thoughts. Focus on the simple reality of your breath. This practice is the muscle memory for profound thought. It teaches your mind that it has permission to disengage from the urgent and engage with the important. Most people are victims of their environments, allowing every external input to dictate their emotional and mental state. The master of their fate is the one who chooses the internal landscape, regardless of the external chaos. Understand the profound truth that your current level of success is perfectly matched to your current level of internal clarity. If you want a quantum leap in your results, in your finances, your health, your relationships, you must first commit to a quantum leap in your thinking. And that leap requires space. Good fortune favors the mind that is well tended, much like a fertile garden. If you constantly allow the weeds of distraction, comparison, and external validation to choke the soil, your most potent ideas will never bear fruit. Solitude is the weeding process. It is the essential, often uncomfortable work of removing everything that does not serve your highest purpose. It is the crucible where great visions are purified and made ready for deployment into the world. So let us conclude this first part of our journey with a firm commitment. You will no longer view being alone as a state of lack or misfortune. You will redefine it. Solitude is your most powerful tool for self-mastery. It is the place where you cease being a reactor and become an initiator. It is the space where you trade fleeting external approval for unshakable internal power. Commit to it, schedule it, and protect it fiercely. For within that quiet space, the seeds of your greatest fortune are waiting to be sown. What specific time each day could you commit to implementing your first 15-minute intentional interval of solitude? The discipline of solitude must evolve past the intentional interval and become a fundamental pillar of your life, manifested through a concept I call the investment of deep time. This is the deliberate allocation of large, unbroken blocks of hours, 4, 6, perhaps even 8 hours, during which your mind is engaged in the singular pursuit of a monumental task, unburdened by the requirements of the external world. Most people work in fragmented segments, their day sliced into 45-minute pieces by email chimes and calendar alerts. They mistake this frenzied activity for actual progress. Deep time, achieved only through the protection afforded by solitude, is the exact opposite. It is the practice of unitary focus. When you commit to deep time, you are leveraging the psychological phenomenon that takes 3 hours or more of sustained, interruption-free effort to reach the highest level of cognitive function, often called the flow state. In this state of flow, your productivity is not merely additive, it becomes exponential. Your most complex work, the drafting of a core strategy document, the design of a new system, the writing of a defining chapter, is not something that can be achieved in 30-minute bursts. It requires the mind to settle, to integrate, and to build momentum, creating a kind of intellectual flywheel. Solitude is the silent engine that allows this flywheel to spin unimpeded. Think of the craftsman who forges a sword. He does not tap at the metal for 5 minutes, check his phone, answer a few queries, and then return for another tap. He sustains the heat, he maintains the rhythm, and he commits to the hours of relentless, singular effort until the metal is transformed from mere ore into an instrument of precision. Your thinking is that metal, and deep time in solitude is the heat and the hammer. The necessity of this investment is magnified when we consider the concept of high-leverage thinking. A great deal of the activity we call work is merely administrative maintenance, low-leverage, necessary but non-transformative tasks. High-leverage thinking, however, is the act of formulating a single idea or decision that, once implemented, generates massive returns across multiple fronts. For example, a low-leverage activity is managing your inbox for an hour. A high-leverage activity is spending 2 hours in solitude drafting a single, compelling vision statement that unites and motivates your entire team for the next year. The latter requires stillness, reflection, and the courage to articulate a bold future, qualities that perish instantly under the constant gaze and distraction of others. The habit of embracing solitude for deep time is, in essence, the habit of consistently prioritizing transformation over transaction. The transactional demands of life will always be present, but they are distractions. The transformative work, the work that invites lasting good fortune, demands the protected incubation period that only you can grant it. Furthermore, solitude must be seen as the ultimate practice in the art of self-reliance. We live in an era where specialization has created a dependency culture. We are taught to outsource our thinking, to consult an expert for every minor decision, to seek consensus before taking the slightest risk. While collaboration has its place, this over-reliance on external authority cripples your personal authority. The successful individual must be capable of standing alone on a difficult decision. They must possess the internal gyroscope necessary to navigate uncertainty without constantly requiring the reassurance of a focus group. This quality is not developed in a group setting. It is honed through solitary intellectual wrestling. When you spend deep time grappling with a problem without the safety net of immediate advice, you are strengthening your cognitive independence. You are teaching your brain to trust its own synthesis of data, to identify its own blind spots, and to formulate its own unique solutions. This self-reliance radiates outwards as confidence, and confidence is the currency of leadership. Good fortune is disproportionately attracted to those who demonstrate an unwavering trust in their own judgment. Therefore, the next step in mastering the discipline of solitude is not merely to reflect, but to produce something of high value during your protected time. Identify the one highest leverage item on your professional or personal agenda. Then, schedule and fiercely protect the 4 hours required to bring it into substantial form. This is the solitary action that generates superior results. Will you identify the single highest leverage task you will dedicate your next block of deep time to? The final, non-negotiable step in fully utilizing solitude to invite good fortune is the practice of internal resonance. This is where the self-mastery cultivated in the quiet translates into magnetic external results. Solitude doesn't just make you a better thinker, it makes you a more compelling presence. The power of internal resonance. Internal resonance is the state where your external presentation is perfectly aligned with your internal conviction. Because you have spent time in the silence purging your mind of contradictory thoughts and clarifying your core purpose, your actions, your speech, and even your nonverbal communication carry a weight and authenticity that manufactured charisma can never replicate. People are subconsciously drawn to clarity and congruence. They can detect instinctively when a person is speaking from a place of deep, unassailable truth versus someone who is merely echoing popular sentiment or trying too hard to please. This internal alignment is the wellspring of trust, and trust is the foundation upon which all significant opportunities, partnerships, and high-value transactions are built. In the market of ideas and influence, the man who has done his solitary internal work is the one who stands out. He possesses an unwavering stillness, a calmness under pressure that comes from knowing his own center is secure. When others panic, he remains steady because he has already confronted the worst-case scenarios and his own limitations during his dedicated moments of isolation. This stillness is a powerful attractor of both people and fortune. Building the emotional armor solitude also provides the essential training ground for building emotional armor. Success inevitably attracts not just admiration, but also envy and criticism. The unprepared mind takes these attacks personally, allowing them to derail momentum and erode self-belief. But the person who regularly retreats into the self has developed a crucial distinction, the ability to separate external noise from internal truth. In solitude, you learn to process criticism objectively, discarding the malice while extracting any kernel of legitimate feedback. You learn to differentiate between the opinion of the world and the reality of your mission. This mastery grants you emotional invulnerability, not a callousness, but a disciplined detachment. This detachment ensures that your motivation remains intrinsic. You are no longer driven by the desire to prove your critics wrong or to win the applause of the crowd. You are driven by the internal necessity of fulfilling your purpose. This intrinsic motivation is vastly more sustainable and powerful than any external incentive. It is the fuel that allows you to endure long periods of effort without immediate reward, which is precisely what monumental achievements require. Solitude as strategic retreat. Finally, recognize solitude as the necessary strategic retreat that preserves your vision. The moment you step into the world with a powerful new idea, it will be assaulted by skepticism, compromise, and the tendency of groups to dilute originality into comfortable mediocrity. Your solitary time is the safe harbor where your most precious, yet fragile, ideas are incubated and shielded from the forces of entropy. You return to the well of quiet to recharge your visionary energy and to reconnect with the pure, uncompromised intent of your work. This cyclical process of solitude for creation and engagement for execution is the rhythmic breathing of a highly successful life. Embracing solitude is not a suggestion, it is a mandate for mastery. It is the non-negotiable practice that transforms a person of potential into a person of proven power. It invites good fortune not through magic, but by systematically optimizing the most important factor in your life, yourself. You have the framework, you have the understanding. Now the final step is absolute commitment. Will you protect the silence required to claim the profound fortune that awaits?